Hello and welcome to our transfer tips video for game week 16. Last week we had 5 players here in which you could have bought, sold, kept or avoid. Last week of course Salah was not available because the Merseyside derby was postponed, so obviously our Salah pick in order to buy him was not necessarily a failure, because it didn't play anyway. We did have one failure in there though, and it was in Buemo against Newcastle. He picked up a 13-pointer, essentially out of nowhere because of how poor he has been. I feel like our reasoning for selling him based on his expected goal involvement since Visa had came back was, justified, but sometimes that does just happen and he picks up a 13-pointer, which is unfortunate. The rest of our transfer tips, however, were a success. We did decide to keep Isak. He was getting sold off quite a lot last week for some reason. And he has still a really nice run of fixtures. Picked up an 8-pointer after scoring against Brentford as well, which was nice. And then of course Rashford and Jackson as well. We decided to avoid Rashford, who was one of the popular transfers last week, after scoring, I believe, in back-to-back game weeks with Amarim back in the side. Only picked up a 1-pointer this week against Nottingham Forest. Then of course Nicholas Jackson was up against Spurs. I can't actually remember whether what was that, if it was 3-2 or 4-2. Jackson ended up with a 2-pointer. Our reasoning for avoiding him is because of his yellow card. He didn't pick up one in the derby game, which I did expect to happen, which would have seen him out for game week 16, but we were still waiting on that yellow card to come around. So yes, Jackson does have a really nice run of fixtures, but he is one yellow card away from a suspension, and we don't know when that's going to be. So for me, I think avoiding him for now until that suspension is over. But we do have a couple more transfer tips for this week, so let's jump straight into it. So starting off this week with a pretty simple one, we have Saliba. He's the most transferred player in this week at 250,000 transfers, and it makes sense because obviously Gabriel is injured and has now missed 2 matches, just missed the Champions League squad as well for Arsenal against Monaco, and it looks unlikely that he is going to be available for game week 16 as well. So a lot of people are bringing him out and obviously going to the nearest replacement, which is William Saliba. 6.2 million he is now, and he is due to rise again at some point, probably not before the deadline but potentially over the weekend. But it's a very safe transfer, I think, to make. We don't really have to look at Arsenal's defensive stats, because we know Arsenal are a solid defence and they have really nice fixtures still coming up. Everton at home is a really nice one. Everton do struggle to score goals sometimes, and of course we know Arsenal are solid. Crystal Palace away isn't actually that bad either, and of course Ipswich at home. So an Arsenal defender does look like a good move for the upcoming games, and of course with Gabriel out, Saliba is going to be your next best thing. Do still like the look of Timber as well, but of course Saliba is going to be more minutes guaranteed. So for me, if you're looking to get him in, I definitely think it's a good option. Now next up we've got a little bit more of an interesting one. It is Enzo Fernandez. Now when I seen him up here with the highest transfers in this week, he has 213,000. Originally, like looking at it off the bat, I thought this guy is 100% going to be an avoid, because there's no way his stats over the last few are keeping up with what is going to be viable over the next few weeks. We are going to look at them in a little minute, but he is only a 5 million defender, so he is one of the cheaper defenders in the game, cheaper than the likes of Morgan Rogers, cheaper than the likes of McNeil. So he is a very, very budget midfielder that you can easily have as your 5th midfielder choice, someone that can come on and off the bench dependent on Chelsea's fixtures. Still really good fixtures coming up for him. He's got Brentford at home this week, followed by Everton away and Fulham at home. Very, very decent fixtures, all green as well. But when we look at his stats, of course, it has been the last 4 game weeks where Enzo has really stood out. You can see down the bottom his points over the last 5 weeks. He's picked up 9, 5, 9, 12 in his last 4 game weeks, and then a 4-pointer as well in game week 11. So when you actually look at his points over the last 4 matches, he's sitting in 5th for midfielders, only behind the likes your big premiums Salah, Palmer, Saka, and of course Shade did really well that 1 game week as well, so he's got 35 points as well. So it is 3 goals and 2 assists now for Enzo, up to 5% ownership. But again, like I said, I really did think I'd be easily avoiding him, but when you look at his stats over the last couple of games, he is 4th for expected goal involvements from midfielders, again only behind Palmer and Salah, and obviously Kluivert is in there as well, but he did had, was it 3 penalties, a hat-trick of penalties he scored, so his expected goals are going to be very high, because obviously you are expected to score penalties. So if you were to take Kluivert out of the equation, Enzo Fernandez would be the highest for expected goal involvement, just behind 2 big premiums in Palmer and Salah, which is very impressive. And then even when you're looking at the key passes, picking up assists, he's sitting in 6th over the last 4 games as well. Again, in there with the likes of Saka, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, some of your more expensive midfielders. So yes, I'm a little bit wary of him, because he's not going to be someone, I don't think, who's going to pick up a couple of returns per game. He does potentially just, get 1 return and a couple of points from that, but he's only 5 million, you can't really go too wrong. Do you want to use a transfer on it? That could be a little bit more debatable, but a really nice option, even just as a first bench player. I think he's a good buy this week. Now, next up for the first time, we're going to look at 2 different players, and we're starting off with Chris Wood, who is going to be in a void. He is one of the highest transferred players in, obviously scored against Man United over the weekend. He has 143 transfers in, 143,000 transfers in so far, and he's up to 6.5 million from his 6 million at the start of the season. Now, if you've had Chris Wood previously in the season, you probably sold him a couple of weeks ago because his fixtures were not too great over the coming weeks. Now, we are still in that period where his fixtures aren't great. We've got the likes of Villa, Brentford, Spurs. Brentford have been really solid at home, so that is obviously considered as an orange fixture, but still 3 tough fixtures over the next few. Now, I'm going to come back to Chris Wood, but we're also looking at Jamie Vardy, another striker who has been brought in quite a few times, with 95,000 people transferring him in for this week. He is another avoid, and again, similar with Wood, he's just not viable when it comes to the stats, which again we are going to look at, but again, still very difficult fixtures for him. Obviously, he plays with Leicester, they've got Newcastle away this weekend in game week 16, followed by a good fixture in game week 17 against Wolves, but then following that he's got Liverpool, and then he's actually got Man City after that as well. So really difficult fixtures, and this is where we start to look at both of the players. So obviously, looking at the last 5 matches, this is why people are bringing them in, because they've been scoring points recently. When we look at their XG from forwards over the last 5 matches, both of them really aren't doing amazingly. You're talking the last 5 games, Chris Wood's only accumulated 1.46 expected goals. Vardy even less than that at 1.06, sitting in 14th and 20th. Now, when you consider that you're only allowed 3 forwards, maybe 2, depending on if you want on a bench one, that's 13 better strikers than Chris Wood, 19 better strikers than Jamie Vardy. So there's just a lot better options, and they're not really doing too great, especially when you consider that most teams only have 1 forward. You could argue that Jamie Vardy is, one of the worst active forwards over the last 5 matches for expected goals. So yes, they are getting goals every now and then. Strikers are going to do that, outperform their XG, but it's just not going to be viable, and considering their tough fixtures, I don't see them doing too well over the next few weeks. So for both of them, I definitely wouldn't be looking to buy them this week. I think maybe when their fixtures get a little bit better and maybe their stats improve, at that point we can look to potentially purchase them, but for right now, with poor stats and poor fixtures, I'd be looking to avoid them both. And our final player will be another striker, and it is Danny Welbeck, and unfortunately he's going to be someone I'd be looking to sell this week. He has been on the bench in his last 2 games, and it's unfortunate because he has been really good when he has started for Brighton and was a really good pick up until really about game week 6, where he didn't really do too well. Now João Pedro's came back into the team and Ferguson has been getting starts. Welbeck hasn't really been getting the starts that he was earlier in the season. So yes, really nice fixtures for him and really nice stats when he does play. However, when you're not guaranteeing minutes from someone, there's no real point in keeping them, especially when there's no injuries or anything that are keeping him out. He is just getting benched. So he's got 150,000 transfers out so far, so a lot of people are looking to get him out. Not due to drop in price again. He is sitting at 5.8 million right now, so you should be good before the deadline. But it is a shame because he does have really nice fixtures and he would be a nice option. If you want someone from Brighton, João Pedro would definitely be the option to go for. He is on penalties as well and he has been starting, so he hasn't been great as well in form recently, so maybe you want to look elsewhere. If you want to look for a Welbeck replacement directly though, João Pedro would be the one. So with all that being said, these are the 5 players we have on our transfer tips this week. I would have liked to include a little bit more, but I feel like everyone in the the top transfers in and out lists have been covered. So this is how it's looking. We've got 2 buys, 2 avoids, 1 sell, and 0 keeps for this week. Hopefully we can go 5 out of 5 for game week 16. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe as well if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.